So I'm going to talk about a project, Gotcha project, which is entitled Syntactic Annotation of Corpora. And we named the talk, which I'm going to present, Corpus Arbore à la Carte in French, out of sheer snobbery, but also, well, to attract your attention. But in fact, the title could be translated into English as Tree Bank for All Tastes, or something like that. You know? So this is here is a group of authors which collaborate on the project. So here is the outline of my talk. There are seven main parts of it. After the introduction, I'll present main features of the project, of the whole enterprise, the inner architecture of the corpus and of its representation. This will be followed by examples, which are going to exemplify various aspects and complicated cases by sentences. Then it might be interesting for you how the input text is processed through the whole sequence of modules. Then I'll summarize main assets, main tenets of the talk, and then we shall conclude. And then I hope there will be a long, interesting discussion, because there is a plethora of problems which should be discussed, I think. We all know that there are different views of syntactic structures. Syntax is a discipline, as you know, of many theories. And it's very often the case that syntactically annotated corpora run the risk of a theoretical bias. And we also know that theory-specific representations have, as we say, different appearances, but they share a large common part. And this is one of the main reasons for which we have started the project. It's very important to say that although there is a large part of the common content, the content can be viewed in different ways. You know? So the tree bank offers different ways of a single representation, single annotation, and we think that it's really a realistic and appropriate goal. But we can discuss this presupposition later. We think that it's not a good idea to start from scratch. If we want to annotate syntactically corpora, then we should, of course, use the results which have already been presented and which exist. Because there was a lot of effort invested in building tree banks already. There's a there's a long list of books and papers which deal with the problem. There are several names here, among others also Haj et Ali. And we think that we could improve over annotation schemes which already exist. We would like to stress several aspects. The first of them is underspecified morphological and syntactic core. Underspecification is one of the very important concepts. Then we'd like to use multiple interaction shells, and the customization is also one of the main, we can say, main tenets of our approach, because we'd like to customize the results of the existing annotation and to present them according to various preferences of humans and also computer applications. And that's a very important point. The data in the tree bank should be accessible to lay users, and also it should also satisfy experts as well. So these two important kinds of audience should exploit the results of our work. The main features of our project are presented on this slide. Our internal skeleton structure, by which we want to represent the sentence, is constituency-based. And there we combine binary and flat branching of the constituency trees. But these trees are interpretable in a constituency or dependency way. So we can extract or represent the existing annotation in this or in that manner, according to the user specification. So we can visualize a certain amount of detail, tree graphs, just a sequence of words, and so on. Within our annotation, both important structures are involved. It's a surface and deep structure. They are encoded within a single structure, and the constituents are labeled as syntactic functions. Their list will follow. Among these functions, there are three important functions which are specific in a way. We distinguish deep heads and surface heads were necessary. So deep heads are classical deep syntactic governors. For instance, in the sentence, bylo by se to povedlo, povedlo is an autosemantic verb, which is a deep head of the whole structure, unlike these auxiliary verbs such as byl and conditional by. These are surface heads. So here we can distinguish between these two kinds of heads. Very often, deep and surface heads are identical. For instance, in endocentric constructions, attribute and a noun, where noun is always both deep and surface head. Therefore, we also use the term head for the conjunction of these two kinds of heads. Surface heads serve as heads in analytical predicate constructions with auxiliary beat. In prepositions, vnoci, preposition is a surface head, vnoci should be marked as a deep head. Then in subordinate constructions, a numeral of the type 5 chlapců, 5 boys, which is a very specific phenomenon in Slavic languages. We work with three levels of representation. The first level is the first level of graphemics, just orthographic words, where contractions are not interpreted. We shall come to examples later. Then comes the level of morphology, where there are syntactic words and also interpreted haplologized items, such as viděls, etc. And then comes the most important level in our approach. This is a level of syntax, which is represented by constituent trees, where individual words are represented as nodes, and also there is one virtual node with no lexical labeling. These nodes are in fact only pro-drop subjects. The examples will follow. In addition to dependencies and constituency relations, we'd like to annotate also these surface syntax phenomena, especially agreement of various types. Then, of course, compound periphrastic verbal forms. In Czech, you know that the majority of the predicate forms is expressed by analytical word forms, so not synthetically, but analytically, such as passives, conditional structures, preterites of the first and second person, etc. Grammatical coreference is another very important phenomenon which includes grammatical control and various relations, anaphoric relations containing relative and reflexive pronouns and doplňky, predicate complements. So these are phenomena which can hardly be expressed by dependency or constituent structures only. And then, of course, we'd like to mark and annotate multi-word units of various kinds, such as collocations, phrasemes. We think that the expressive power of the whole approach can accommodate analyses of arbitrary granularity. You know? What is very important is to say that we, as I said already, we like to use underspecification and also distributed disjunction in cases where there is ambiguity or some undecidable phenomena. And what I should stress also is that we should make it possible that the annotation of a kind could be missing. You know? So a sentence can be represented or viewed as a mere list of words. Of course, annotation must be licensed by a formal grammar, where also the possibility of underspecification should be included. Lexicons are used to index forms and syntactic words and, of course, compound forms. And as I already said, customizable visualizations should be enabled by formal definitions. So what the overall architecture looks like. So there, as I said, three representation layers: the text layer, the graphemic level, morphology, and then syntactic structure. For capturing, for annotating sentences, we use three kinds of lexicons. First is a so far classical morphological lexicon, which is a result of the which is used by morphological analysis, and then two syntactic lexica, syntactic lexicon proper, and then the lexicon containing multi-word expressions. There are among layers and between layers and lexicon and among lexicons, there are always two-way links which connect various elements within these parts of the whole structure. So we can link information across various layers. Of course, we can also provide lexeme-specific information. And what's very important, we would like to identify multi-word expressions, including also verbal periphrastic forms. As for the tree by which we represent the input sentences, we would like to express, as I said, various kinds of agreement. There are also multi-word or compound verbal predicates and grammatical coreference and other phenomena. So, for instance, if a user wants to see conditionals in a tree bank, so he can specify a query by which he can find, he or she can find all conditionals or all these phenomena which he or she searches. So here is a outline, sketchy outline how these links are connect various lexicons and layers. So everything is, as you see, interlinked, 3 layers and three lexicons. Again, lexicons are connected also layers, and then two kinds of elements. As to the word layer, we work with tokenized elements which include punctuation and multi-word expressions. I'm very, very sorry for the mistake, which is there. Československý should be split into 2 or 3 parts. Yeah? Česko-slovenský or Česko-slovenský on this level. Here contractions, such as oč, ses, viděls, are left intact. They are not interpreted. They are interpreted on the next level. It's a morphological layer, which is a result of morphological analysis and lemmatization of all forms. The contractions are interpreted here. For instance, oč is split into 3 elements, oco, si, and these elements then form nodes in the on the syntactic layer. And also some punctuation marks which have been separated on the word layer that are glued back with word forms. For instance, Česko-slovenský should be glued together. Syntactic layer contains constituency-based structure, which is representable according to various users' options or specifications. Punctuation is omitted here, so commas, periods are omitted. But, as I've already said, product subjects are added as nodes, but no other element so far in our plans. As to syntactic structure, I can say that the structure is represented, as I said, by a constituency-based tree, where, it's very important, and we're just going to delve into the intrinsic part of our project. Each terminal node is assigned a type and a syntactic function. Their repertory shall be seen on the next slide. Then each terminal node is also assigned a syntactic function. So there are non-terminal elements and terminal ones, and they are assigned these kinds of information. The types. We work with 2 types, the type headed and type unheaded. The headed type contains a head as a key element on which in a dependency framework other elements depend. Type unheaded is reserved for such phenomena as coordination, adornation, and also other unspecified phenomena where there is no need to induce an internal structure of a dependency type. So these unspecified types of structures are reserved for collocations and other elements where there is no dependency involved. There shouldn't be involved. As to syntactic functions, there are 3 types of functions. This is the first type. There are special functions for type-headed structures. As a first, surface head. I've already mentioned it. You know, this is a head with in structures with auxiliary bývat. These elements are surface heads, unlike autosemantic verbs, which are deep heads. Then in prepositional structures, prepositions, in subordinate constructions, and numerals in these quantified expressions, such as pět dětí. Pět, surface head, dětí, is a deep head. Deep head may differ from surface heads, but needn't, of course. Very often it doesn't. So these are head nouns in prepositional phrases, autosemantic verbs, analytical predicates, and so on. Very often is the case that an element is both surface and deep head. Then the function of such a node is marked as a head. So this is the first group of functions. The second group is constituted by classical functions, the syntactic functions. These are the functions for the type-headed structures. Subject, attribute, object, adverbial, but this may be also further structured Very often we can hardly decide whether an element or structure is an object or an adverbial. So then we can use this underspecified function obje adverbe. Then predicative complement. There is a special function for reflexive elements in reflexive only verbs, inherent reflexives. Then there is a special function for de-agentive constructions, such as barbovka se peče, for instance. Then apposition, and then there is a special function in-depth, independent syntactic element, such as parenthesis, vocative syntactic noun, and other similar structures. And there is also a special function forming the third group functions containing only one member. It's a function assigned to type unheaded structures. No? We say that an element is a member of the structure. For instance, I'm a member of a coordinated group. So memp is such a function. As far as the lexicons are concerned, we work, as I said, with morphological lexicon and a syntactic one and a multi-word lexicon. This is the morphological lexicon. It contains, in a classic way, a list of lemmas with their inflection paradigms, their morphological properties. A lemma is introduced if two words differ only in morphological paradigms, not only in syntactic properties or in semantics. For instance, travička is an ambiguous word, but not on the level of morphology. It's a problem of lexical semantics. So travička will be represented only by one lemma in this morphological lexicon, because it displays the same, both meanings display the same morphological behavior. But člen is represented by two lemmas, because it can be masculine animate or masculine inanimate. Syntactic lexicon contains a list of lemmas with their syntactic properties. Here, inherent reflexives only, are represented by separate entries. So, for instance, rozhodnout and rozhodnout se are different verbs, and they are also formed by two separate entries. Unlike vidět, this one entry, also it can have different frames attached to them, assigned. In this lexicon, a very important part is constituted by valency frame entries. From individual verbs, for instance, there are links to these entries. In case, for instance, that a verb has more valency frames. And the third lexicon is called multi-word lexicon, which contains various kinds of data. First, it contains collocations of the classical type, křížek, prážek, nechat na holičkách, and so on, of various types, I can say. Petrified collocations such as křížek, krážem, or collocations where there is inflection, you can simply inflect them and change the word order and so on. Then there are types of analytical verb forms, types of them, such as conditional here or preterite. So for each type of analytical predicate, we have a separate entry here, just for the reference and for the possibility to search in a corpus then. If a user wants to, for instance, as I said, conditionals, here is the entry which makes this possible. Then there are slots for inherent reflexive of their types. Usmíváš se, rozhodne se will be represented by one entry here, similarly as with si. Also, kinds of deadjective constructions will be in this multi-word lexicon. Then also reflexive passives, slots for various kinds of analytical passives, nominal predicates, and also for all possible agreement patterns, such as a slot or entry for predicative complements of various kinds. Predicative complement agreeing with the subject or object, for instance. Examples. Let's have a sentence, rozhodl se umít. This is a very complicated sentence because there is a haplology with se. You know? In fact, the sentence should be interpreted as rozhodl se umít, or rozhodl se umít se. This is the level of graphemics, just a mere string of words. Here is a morphological layer with morphological properties of individual words. You see that se has two slots here because in this manner we'd like to express just haplology. So first there are two interpretations of se. The first is a pronominal one. The second is a, well, particle one. Yeah? Te, ti, ti. Rozhodl se, rozhodl umí. There are two slots, and these slots will be pointed to in further down in the picture. Morphological lexicon is connected with this morphological interpretation layer by these links. You see, rozhodnout has an entry in the morphological lexicon. There are two kinds of se. There are links to different slots for se on the morphological level. Umít is also linked with morphological lexicon. In fact, this is an expression of lemmatization. The syntactic structure is outlined by this very simple tree, which represents syntactic structure of the sentence. Here we see the functions. You know? For instance, we see this head refletant. It's an expression of the reflexive only verb, rozhodl se. The head obje means se represents umít se, where se is object. We see the links to the morphological level from individual leaves of the tree. And then also, we see the links from non-terminals. For instance, there is a note representing this, the pair verb and reflexive se. There is a pointer to the syntactic lexicon, rozhodnout se. This is a very important aspect of the whole structure. Then also we see the links from the leaves to the morphological level. Then also there is a multi-word lexicon with entries for structures. There is a structure verb se, to which the two elements point from the tree. This is just the place which is used for searching the corpus, just for this kind of phenomenon. In our project, we would like to also to capture subject-object ambiguity. This is a classical type of ambiguity in Czech. Zdravotnictví musí zachránit stát. There are at least two readings of this sentence, two different readings. The first one, health service must save the state. Health service is actor. The second sentence, health service must be saved by the government. In Czech, this is expressed by different cases, and this is how we shall represent these two meanings You see, the structures are the same, only zdravotnický subject and start object are changed places. This is the only difference in these constructions, because this is a surface syntax. Zdravotnický subject here in the first sentence, subject start is subject in the second sentence. Here we also see how the functions are distributed here. As to morphological analysis of the first of the sentence, we see some values unspecified. Zdravotnictví musí zachránit stát. There are the number is expressed gender and also case, but case there is a variable for case, and also with start. Here is the tree expressed in this way. These are the constituents of the tree in one of two possible syntactic structures of the sentence. These box numbers refer to these forms above. So this is the constituents tree, and we have two possible structures with constraints on category values and overriding clauses. The X is a nominative case, Y is an accusative case, or vice versa. And here the concept of distributive disjunction is just applicable. So we'd like to capture both meanings in this concise way. We would like also to deal with another type of subject-object ambiguity. Reflexive passives. In sentence 2, we see the sentence zařízení se využívá, and there are at least two readings of this sentence again. Either zařízení is subject, then it is in the nominative case, and then se is marked as the agentive function, it has this function, or zařízení is object, and then se is also the agentive function, and in both cases, využívá is the head. So both interpretations should be interpretable and should be captured in our project, but we'd like also to represent or to display this ambiguity, both ways of looking at the same sentence. Another problem is constituted by treating contractions. This is a very complex sentence, complicated and complex sentence. Ty by ses byl ušpinil, where ty byl ušpinil are words which are underlined. I'd like to express agreement in this way. This S, last letter of the word says, is also involved in the agreement structure, because it expresses a singular second person. This is a sentence on the word level. Its structure is seen in 4. This is how we'd like to represent this sentence. Bis is a surface head. The autosemantic verb is expressed by a deep head. But the deep head is further split into, again, surface head, head, here surface head, and ušpinil se, the deep head. Here, ušpinil is the head of the structure, and se is its object. Both form the deep head structure with respect to the other nodes here. From 4, we can derive a surface dependency structure, which you see in 5. The surface dependency structure, but also a deep dependency structure is derived from the same sentence. It would look something like this. All these words are compressed in one node. They label one node, which then has two lists, two leaves, the and se, subject and object. There are very complex cases, complicated cases of coordination of deep head and surface head. This is one of the problems which should be tackled. Sentence chci a budu pracovat is a quite a complicated sentence because of an ellipsis which is inherently involved in the sentence. We have two separate interpretations for the sentence chci pracovat on the one hand and budu pracovat on the other hand. So these are structures for these separate simple sentences, and their coordination is composed of these two, but then we must decide the function of pracovat, as we've seen here. Here pracovat, the first simple sentence is object, and the second, it is a deep head. In the coordination, we have only one possibility, so we opt for object. And the template for instance, for periphrastic structures, periphrastic future in the check, will be included in the multi-word lexicon. So we can use this information, this template, for further queries. How the input text is processed. Here, there are several steps of the sentence being processed. The first, the sentence is tokenized and sentence segmented. The result is a sentence on the graphemical word level. Then comes morphological analysis and disambiguation in a classical way. So we use a classical morphological analysis by Jan Heich and other. In disambiguation, we use all the modules which are used for disambiguating corpora within the Czech National Corpus project. So we use rule-based disambiguation, RAPS, Morchev, and collocation module. And the result is put on the sentence, on the morphological level. Then comes MacDonald et al. Parser. We can use other parsers, or we can simply use them with a voting scenario. This parser is applied, these parsers are applied to the disambiguated sentence. You know? We hope, and I think it's the case, that this parser can be parameterized. Then it's a very important part or asset of our approach. We view it this way. This is an automatic correction of the parse. So the result of the parser is then processed by various rule-based corrections within a rule-based correction module. Everything is still in the tecto-empty format, or format in which the MacDonald parser gives its result. So the parse is corrected, and then the result is then converted from the tecto-empty format to our format, with the modifications which are listed here. So there are various phenomena that in a dependency tree require various arbitrary decisions, such as constructions with auxiliary verbs, then coordinated constructions and enumerations and lists. And then this junction is very important here because it can account for structural ambiguities expressed by combined functions such as other functions where there is a, ambiguity or it's quite difficult to represent these structures within the PDT analytical layer, on the analytical layer. So we'd like to use just this disjunction for expressing these labels from the PDT, from the analytical layer in the PDT. So here are the main, in our view, are main assets of the whole enterprise. We want to exploit existing approaches. We just don't want to start from scratch. Various approaches and tools, because we really cannot develop the tree bank from scratch. We use, as you've seen, multi-layer standoff annotation. A very important part of the whole project are these linguistically motivated corrections of the results of the tools we use. This is just a part of the project on which Tomáš Jelínek works. And the whole processing should be entirely automatic. Because we would like to annotate not only 1 million words, which we have planned for the 3-year Gotcha project, but also corpora comprising about 100 million word forms. I'd like to then discuss with you the assets or tenets of our approach with respect to PDT, to analytical layer of the PDT. So we'd like to perform a single annotation capturing the syntactic core with as little as theoretical bias as possible. But we'd like to produce various interpretations which use, as I said, underspecification, disjunction, and distributive disjunction. We want to capture various ambiguities. Then I'd like to export options into formats which are customizable on user demand. Yeah? And we'd like to visualize the input of annotated data in various ways. So that's very, these are the assets of our approach summarized on this slide. And I'm going to conclude with the work which is planned for the near future. We'd like to continue the rule-based corrections, and Tomáš Jelínek will have his presentation here in 2 months' time. Detection of systemic ambiguities is a very important linguistic task within the whole project. Of course, we'd like to further develop morphological and syntactic lexicons according to the guidelines which I've presented. Also, it's a very important part of the task which is just currently being performed by Petr Jäger, a conversion module for transforming the output of the McDonald's parser to our format. And it's also the task of Petr Jäger to develop a Corpus query engine front end for visualizing the data. And here, of course, the sort of visualization language is necessary. We can discuss then the possibility of an extended version of thread or some cooperation, some collaboration with the thread authors. And of course, one of our plans is after all these modules will be available, so then we'd like to automatically annotate arbitrary amounts of linguistic data. So here is bibliography, several items, and with this slide, I would like to finish my talk. That's it. Thank you very much.
And now we have time for
course, yes.
Okay, so I will start with a simple question because I probably came a bit late or didn't pay enough attention. With those links in both directions between lexicons and whatever.
These layers of annotation.
Yes, yes. Do you plan to, I'd say, encode both directions of all those links in the data? Or you will just store some of them and you will, I'd say, compute the rest once you load the data into memory? Or have you planned an approach to this?
This is, yes, this is the problem which we've been discussing for a long time. I think Petriego could answer this question.
Yeah, I don't know if I could use it correctly. So there is also a. It's health? No. Yeah. Sorry. It's a link from a dictionary to our structure. We know that we will not we will not store links in a dictionary, but we plan to store any links in our structures, and for example, these links will be computed. It's enough for a question?
I'll have some more, but maybe someone else can have some questions. I just started with this one because if you do not store all the links, then it may when restoring the rest, you'll have to be very careful whether all the links that you are creating are respecting the rules for them or something like that. So, well, you'll see. And one, I wanted to clarify one more thing. You mentioned that you will be only working with syntactic core. And what does it mean for sentences that do not fit to the core? Are you going to ignore them or use some, you will just leave the list of words? You will not assign any structure if you are not sure how to represent the structure, okay?
Yes, it's one of the options, of course. I personally am afraid of various types of ellipses. That's the main problem. I've shown one of the examples was just the example displaying an ellipsis. Yeah? So we'd like, of course, to annotate them too, but yes, we can resort on the specification here, you know, as a overall concept. But of course, we are not afraid of these structures, but they will be, of course, difficult to annotate. Yeah. I'm quite sure about that.
In your corpus, and I wonder, you're explicitly annotating some phenomena, and you just said that you might be ignoring the hard ones, so they won't be annotated.
No,
but
well, I didn't say that.
Well, that was not meant as an insult. Sorry.
They will be hard ones, of course,
yeah. So anyway, is there any difference in the data whether between the cases when the annotation is missing and the annotation and the phenomenon does not occur? Like, do you explicitly mark cases where something is not there? Like, whatever, some multi-word expressions. This is probably the easiest example. So, if you are not annotating a pair of words, such as hot dog, with the link to the multi-word lexicon, does that mean that this is an unannotated instance, or this is not the multi-word expression of the hot dog?
Yes,
yeah. So I would suggest that you actually include some sort of explicit negation in the markup, so that humans can. I assume that you do all this automatic processing, and then humans can later come and fix what was wrong, and to make it a tree bank, not an automatic tree bank. And for the humans, there should be some means that would allow them to say, this is not a hot dog, the meal. This is a hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd like to express both variants here, of course, yeah. But if we can do it, yeah.
Sorry, but I was not questioned. Sorry. You heard that everything should be automatic, so that excludes the possibility that everything would be annotated as you would have imagined it would be in a manually annotated corpus. But certainly there should be nothing that would prevent someone coming later and doing the proper annotation that would take care of those cases.
Limit. Yeah. I think it can be a very deep limitation of the whatever the formalism you use to describe the data. If there is no way to say, I have seen this, I've annotated this, and this does not happen here. And if this case is not distinguishable from the case where I have not seen the sentence.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of struck that there is nothing about prosody in it, and I understand that's a whole other complicated layer, but some of these ambiguities presumably would be resolved also by differences in word stress or differences in basic clause contours or things like that. So does that ever enter the picture, or is it way too much?
Unfortunately not.
And then if I can continue, I have another, maybe it has nothing to do with the practical annotation problem, but still I'm a bit unclear on the notion of headedness and how you use it. Is it purely a computational variable that just helps in constructing some of these trees, or is it a linguistic category? You know, does it have a content? And the example I'm thinking of is a more painful example of ellipses than what you showed. That one is easy. But, you know, something like, I don't know, I bought Jill 2 dolls and Jack a big car. Then, you know, those two things together, the indirect object and direct object, are not heads in any sense that I can think of the notion of head. So what do you do with those?
We don't want to add other artificial nodes in addition to the product subjects. So yes, it's a complication, definitely. Yeah. I don't know how many elliptic sentences there are. You may know more in the expression in percent. Yeah? But yeah, it's a very difficult problem, and I think one of the most difficult at all.
Should intervene into the discussion, because what Miriam mentioned is a particular case what I wanted to comment upon. I think it's an old story of mine. I always object when somebody says it's a theory-neutral annotation, because I think that I don't want to speak on annotation. All analyses are based on some theory. That once you take a standpoint, that actually you have a theory, and that would be my general comment on what you have said. And Miriam made a comment which I would like to add as well. I mean, you used several notions or terms, I don't know, But if these are notions, then I would like to see the underlying theory. For instance, what's a constituent? I think this is a question which is not yet solved. Is every word, I mean, from blank to blank, a constituent, or do you have some other definition or specification of the notion of constituent? What's the head? I mean, what do you mean by syntactic head, and what do you mean by deep layer head? Third question, what do you mean by deep and surface syntactic annotation? If you say that well, at the beginning you said that you leave aside some syntactic ambiguities, but in the end, or in the second half of your talk, you try to illustrate how at least some of the ambiguities can be guessed or computed from your annotation. But these are not the only kinds of ambiguities, and this is why I ask, what do you mean by deep layer? Because I would assume that these ambiguities must be somehow solved by means of the deep layer. And my fourth point is, then I will stop. My fourth point is, I don't think that the pro subject or the pro drop subject is the only node which you are entitled to add on the deep layer annotation. You said that control phenomenon is something, well, I don't know whether I understood you well, but I thought you said that the control phenomenon is was difficult to handle in dependency structure. But I think that you have to have something in your structures, a node or whatever, for control. I mean, if you have the subject of infinitive, I think there should be something about which you can then say, about the interpretation of the relation, you can say something. So these were just some points which I was tempted to mention at this particular point of the discussion.
As to, of course, yeah, as to product subjects, every infinitive will have its subject. So this type of control can be expressed in our trees. See how we get, there are two product subjects here. Well, one for forte, the second for the infinitive.
May I add one more question? Concerning the definition or specification of the notions. Valency. You said you have a valency in the
Syntactic Lexicon.
In the Syntactic Lexicon. I mean, what do you mean by valency? Is the valency the same on the syntactic, on the surface layer and on the deep layer?
Yes.
What would you do with the deletion if there is a deletion on the surface layer, but there should be something according to our theory in the deep layer?
We are going to use only surface syntactic valence. With one proviso, it's a missing subject or product subject. And there is missing object. So we do not have a special node for that. Yeah. As to the surface and deep heads, I think I explained it in a satisfactory way. The difference between them. We have no deep layer structure. The deep layer. No. We just work with the surface syntax, which can be, the annotated tree can be interpreted in this way, in a deep way, as I've shown on one of the slides.
If the surface head and deep head are only technical or really linguistical notions. And it was the core questions connecting with the theory dependency or not?
I think they're both. I specified 4 cases, where we talk about surface heads. Surface heads. I mean the preposition constructions and then analytical predicates. I don't need it. It's for other discussants. So I've listed the kinds of phenomena which are which can be labeled surface heads, unlike the deep ones. So if we have a deep head,
if I translate it into our language, the deep head is rail head, and the surface head are something auxiliary which we reflect in analytical level.
There are various theories where, for instance, I can demonstrate it on prepositional construction, preposition phrases.
And
in some theories,
periphrastic.
Also, the autosemitic verb is a deep head, and the other elements of the analytical predicate are surface heads.
And one more question, if I had this thing in my hand. Do you receive 2 structures if you have different position of these auxiliaries, or 1? If you have Pavel by byl přišel, byl by Pavel přišel, will be the same, not same structure, but as to the periphrastic expression.
It will be the same syntactic structure, and there are differences in word order, which is expressed on the first or graphemical layer. But the structures are the same. If they are the same, and they are the same from the syntactic point of view, then there's only one structure on the level of syntax.
Something that was said, but maybe was not made important enough. The annotation as it was presented is not meant as something that should be absolutely neutral. It should just express whatever people might like to see in their view of the corpus. So there is always the problem where to set the boundary between what is surface head and what is deep head. Someone might like to see surface heads including modal verbs and phrasal verbs, but for some other reasons it's not practical. Anyway, there must be some boundary between those two. But when someone comes and says, I'd like to see my corpus in that view, maybe treating all phrasal verbs and modal verbs as surface heads, then he might have it, because we stress the issue of customization of the visual presentation of the result of the query, also of stating the query, and also for maybe applications that would use the corpus, so that there would be always the option of the filter that would be customizable according to the users or the application's preferences. So in a way, we know that there is no such things as a completely theoretically neutral annotation, but we would like to provide the option to have some output or input to the corpus according to the preferences of the user. Maybe even this is not completely possible, but this was our goal, and we hope to manage somehow. And about constituent, if we introduced the constituency-based structure basically because it it allowed more freedom in under specification of the structure. If we didn't care about dependencies, so dependency structure would be something that would be somewhat artificial to impose on something that we didn't know anything about.
You still have to somehow specify phrases. Dependency, but you have to specify the boundaries of the phrases.
We got rid of one piece of information that would be necessary to say about the structure, which was what is the head. We didn't get rid of the other piece of information, which is the scope of
the phrase.
Yes, exactly.
But so at least we got rid of one. Well, in the worst case, the whole sentence would be just flat something.
One chunk, I could say.
We are not still sure whether actually the project subjects will be there. Maybe there could be somehow hidden inside the nodes and referenced from anywhere within the sentence, and that would be something similar with controlled infinitives. And maybe finite verbs like in a subject could be treated in the same way as controlled infinitives without additional. So, but that's very recent debate that we are not still finished with.
Well, but still, I think there is a question whether the information encoded in the annotation will be not too poor, so to say. I mean, in the sense that, for instance, when you speak about the pro-drop thing, other question would have been, have you been thinking about such additions of information like co-reference? And yeah, but then, if you are, then you would need information which is deleted on the surface, but has to be taken into account with the co-reference relations. 0 NFO, for instance.
Okay, but if I think I can imagine that we would treat this even without adding more nodes into the structure, just by putting some information, some additional information to the node, which is the referent to some antecedent. We do not know much about the antecedent anyway, so we will just put the morphological information that is available.
But you understand the sentence, you know the antecedent when you are addressee or when you are the reader. But that's another point. But I would accept your argument that for some users of the annotated corpus, visualization, which is not too much burden, so to say, is, well, I think that's one argument for having this kind of option for the user, whether he or she wants to have the heads there or whether he or she doesn't want to have heads there, etc. But at the same time, if you want to help the user by visualization, then I think that you should have the information on the deleted elements in there, on the surface, because the user might be interested in that as well.
Those nodes can be added for the user who wants them.
Yeah, I think that they should be, but that's...
I can transfer the microphone.
So I think that this project cannot be so ambitious as Prague Dependency Tree Bank, where the team of annotators, people are sitting and thinking and annotating. So this is everything here is here everything is automatic. And what is the aim? Do you think that it can serve as a training data for statistical?
One of the
it will be good enough
can be
to
utilized by this way, but also not only that, not only for that, but not only for the training data, of course.
for also.
It's mainly to provide perhaps a larger, not that perfectly annotated as PDT, but just a large corpus, syntactically annotated, and such that a user can see his preferences of types of syntactic annotations, and a large corpus like the corpuses in Czech national corpora and so on. So like the synchronic, like Syn 2000, 2005 and so on. So large corpora that will never be perfectly annotated, but mostly you can see good structures that from your point of view will be interesting as such.
But when we come to the question, who is supposed to be the user? If the information provided, for whom the information provided is good enough, so to say. So I think that's one of the points which the authors have to
take into account.
Well, you've read the title now. It's for all tastes. It's for all tastes. So no. You haven't seen the visualizations. No. You may not be aware what's happening inside the corpus. You just see your beautiful dependency structures as you are used to from Prague Dependency Tree Bank. It's just that the whole Czech national corpus would be you could see this way, maybe. Yeah. So I think that would be something that is worth the effort. And of course, we are parasitic on whatever has been done here. Yeah, this project takes whatever has been done and tries to just present it in a way that would maybe please even more people that have been pleased anyway already. Yeah? And it doesn't have to be just trees. It could be just strings of words with beautiful colors that would go with subject and predicate and object, and maybe children would like to use it.
Colors are very important.
Yeah, well, but the visualization, of course, presupposes that the information should be there, and so the trick is how to make sure that the information is there, and that if the information is not there, so something comes out of the core anyway. Yeah, and we were also hoping that maybe by underspecifying not just the core data, but also the visualizations, so some of the errors that necessarily go with the parser could not just be obvious in the input, or would be kind of hidden, because if we just care about the main constituents of the sentence, so we don't have to see what's happening somewhere deep down in some very embedded structure, and that's kind of messy. So that could be one additional reason.
Well, I'm very much in favor of visualization. So
Yeah, but this could be also for applications. You know, if this could also work as a filter to applications that do not necessarily work with dependency structures. So
I'd like to invite you to Tomáš Jelínek's talk, which should, I think, take place here at the beginning of May, I think. 2nd of May. Yeah. With this correction part will be presented.
I'm sorry, I will talk too much. So if there are no further questions, then I would like to thank the team and Nikki, first of all, for the presentation and for the description of the project. I also am looking forward to the talk on the 2nd of May, but before then, I would like to invite you all for our kickoff meeting, which takes place next week, next Monday, at 1 o'clock, from 1 to 4:30, in the refectory in this building, and we will say and hear some details of the new LINDAT, Linguistic Data project, which started by the end of the last year. So that's for the next week.
The 21st of March, yeah?
21st of March, next Monday. And the week after that, we have a free-day because we will be very much tired after the kickoff meeting. So we have no strength left for a meeting. And then on the 4th of April, there will be a talk by Václava Kettnerová, member of our group. And you will get the invitations, and also you will get the program for the next Monday so that everybody can look what will be presented there. So thank you very much again, and see you next week.